I think that we talked a little earlier about how careful academics have to be when advancing claims. So, if you were to think about the ways in which Indians have created historical knowledge over the last few decades, you had a situation where for the longest time, the knowledge of history was based on very incremental changes, on hard facts and then interpretations and discussions between scholars, and then gradual changes in how we see things. And all of a sudden, in the 2000s, the floodgates were thrown open, as it were. And many facts, many alternative facts suddenly flooded the public domain, and people were free to draw their own conclusions. And as very often happens in these situations, small groups of individuals with their own personal biases went to this information, found stories that agreed with their particular interpretations, and without further discussion, without further debate, without advancing historical knowledge the way that we used to over the last few decades, again, I would still call it historical knowledge, or it doesn't necessarily mean that it's
true.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is a kind of knowledge. But this is being produced at such a scale that it's impossible for conventional ways of writing and telling about history to ever catch up. And I think the solution to that isn't just accessible histories, which put your arm around your shoulder and say, hey, this is what this king was like, but rather, I'm going to tell you all these stories, but also tell you how is it that we are telling histories. Here's the evidence, here are my interpretations, here's what we know, here's what we can't know, and here are the conclusions. And if I'm showing you the mind of a historian, I'm showing you how historians derive information, and I'm hopefully in the process of doing that you learn something about how to interpret facts for yourself, because the reality is that the era of the public historian is here. Now, we have an entire generation of young people who are digitally native, who can very easily access historical information and who will tell stories about it. Now the question is, are we going to make fun of them for it, or are we going to give them the tools to understand it and parse it so we can move forward and advance our understanding of what history actually was rather than what we want history to be? And I think that the answer is in making new kinds of histories and showing people how to tell histories.
Finally, I think that's a great point about public historians. The seduction of belief, it's also a little bit of laziness, where you're fed something and it's easy to digest because you're seduced by a certain idea, and you don't want to, because it's so easily available, you don't want to look at the other side. You think the public historian, it's a little incumbent on the public historian as well to try and pull back those who've been sort of seduced by the laziness of it and going towards an agenda rather than true knowledge. Is it incumbent on the public historian to pull them back, or do you think that you just let the facts out and let it do what it does in the universe?
Yes, I think that, once again, like I said, we put a great deal of weight, a great deal of social importance on history, how people see history, what it should mean to us, what it tells us. And this might be a bit of a heretical opinion, but I don't think it's the historian's job to act as society's savior. I think that absolves society of the broader responsibility of having reasonable conversations, not just about the past, but about everything. A diverse, multi-ethnic, multilingual country like ours achieved the extraordinary things it has over the last few centuries because we had the ability to talk and figure things through as a society. Not that we were perfect at it, but I do think we were a little better than we are now. And I want to believe that people respond to humanity. People don't like being spoken down to, but people also like stories that are complex if they're told well. If you give people a choice between a simple and a complex narrative, I know we generally tend to think that yes, people will always choose the simple narrative, but I've been tremendously humbled that my book has done so well because it revels in avoiding simplicity. Absolutely. It's all about the complexity. It's all about complex people doing human things and encouraging you to relate to them without preaching to you about it. And it works.